It was just, there was a glaring opportunity in the market. I knew I could do something to solve it. And I also had, if I don't do it, someone else would.
Pat Lynes, founder of
Sullivan Stanley Limited,
An award-winning business transformation consultancy. And I'm the sort of individual that one thing I've always said to myself and I say to my children is just have no regrets. I'd rather do something rather than sit there later on in life and go, we should do that, you know?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the High Performance CEO Show, your exclusive insight into the strategies and success habits of the world's top CEOs. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, entrepreneur, mentor, and business angel. Prepare to grow your business, enhance your leadership skills, and thrive in today's world. Let's dive in. Today I'm talking with Pat Lynes, and he's the founder and CEO of Sullivan and Stanley. The company is named after his kids. He's an amazing person. He runs a change and transformation consultancy, working for the biggest companies in the world. Pat is a very passionate entrepreneur, and today we talk about the founder story. So what it takes to found an organization and to grow it to a certain size. Pat, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Sebastian. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this. I like to do podcasts. I probably haven't done as many as I would like to have done as, talking about the founder story. I've been quite operational for a couple of years. So ready for this morning. I've had a good morning. I've been in the gym, I've had my breakfast, spent some time with the family. So let's go and see where we get to.
Hey, that's the perfect way to start an amazing day, going to the gym and spending time with your family. So before we start, I read that you named the company based on your kids.
Yes.
So I want to share some background on that. It's an amazing way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It is quite inspiring. And I think sometimes you need that extra inspiration when you're a founder, entrepreneur, CEO, because as you know full well, Sebastian, some days are great, some days aren't so good. So Sullivan is 12 now and Stanley is 9, going to be 10 next month. So when I founded the business, I'm sure you've been through this before, you start to think, well, what am I going to call the business, and you start to ideate and you come up with all these names and you never quite get there and, you sort of agree on something, then you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and then you think that's a terrible name. So the genesis of the business, the vision of the business was to inspire a future of work and a future of business in industry. So that was where the sort of thought process came around what to name the organization. So the short story is my dad, who is a successful retail banker, he's a chairman of Sullivan Stanley, and he obviously has helped me throughout the whole thing, which has been great. And I'll never forget it. We went into, maybe it was a WeWork or an office group about 2 months before launching the business and exiting my last business. And I was sitting there getting really frustrated with, what am I going to call the business? What am I going to call the business? I mean, Dad, it's just doing my head in. I just want to love the business like I love my 2 sons, Sullivan and Stanley. And then my dad in his Irish voice just went, Patrick, there's your name for your business. And that was it. So Sullivan Stanley was born, and then what I wanted to do with the business and then calling it after my 2 sons was very synergistic with inspiring a future work for their generation and for our children's generation. As you only get one shot at life. We all know that the corporate world can be extremely frustrating. People's preferences are changing all the time. So I'd like Sullivan Stanley to have an influence and impact in where industry is going. And I thought the best vehicle to do that, to be part of that change transformation, which is going on at the moment, is to create a consultancy firm. So that's where it was started from. And yes, it's continued inspiration for not just me, but for the business as well, because everyone buys into that vision and that purpose of S&S. So most people call it S&S, which is abbreviated version, but it is Sullivan and Stanley.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 kids. They're called Jacob and Jasper. We always call it the JJ brothers. Yeah. So, hey, let's see in the next company I found, maybe I incorporate JJ into the name somehow.
Yeah. It's Jacob and Jasper's got a great ring to it. I think Johnson & Johnson might have something to say about J ampersand. I'm sure you'll get around that with your creative background.
And as you said, if you name your company after your kids, it's There's always something very positive associated with it. And we all go through ups and downs. And sometimes we also have days where we don't really like what's happening, but being reminded, your kids, it's a great way. So you founded a company 7 years ago, you said?
Yeah, so I grew the previous company for another entrepreneur into a 9-figure revenue business, which was a great journey and helped me with, having that confidence to go and become an entrepreneur, which we can talk about later. But I exited that business in Jan 2016 and then incorporated and launched Sullivan Stanley April 2016. So yeah, coming up to 7.5 years now.
Great. And most of the companies, they shut down after a year. Most of the new founded companies, and 7 years is a big achievement. So congratulations for that. What are your biggest learnings from this time?
That is a big question, Sebastian. But yeah, firstly, thank you. So there's a lot of learnings, really. I think, we live in an era where everyone wants to become an entrepreneur, or everyone, wants to potentially run their own business, whether it's a micro business or they've got big aspirations. Of course, we've just come out of that era where, money was quite easy to get from venture capitalists and private equity firms. So my overriding biggest learning was you're only ready when you're ready. I didn't get into Sullivan Stanley because I wanted to become an entrepreneur and I wanted the glory with that, and I wanted to have my name above the doors and all of that kind of stuff, which some people do. I'd learned the trade in the trenches, so my natural skill set is selling, market making, bringing communities together, monetizing those communities, and then linking them to a problem that can be solved and improved. So, did 7 years in a big global corporate, Harvey Nash, which you'll know of and heard of. And, another big learning is as you get older, you start to realize what your patterns are in working. So I seem to have a 7-year itch. So after 7 years in a global company, I'm not a political person. I don't enjoy corporate politics. I just like to do good work. So I had an opportunity to join a company called LaFosse Associates as employee number 4. And my mandate was to grow that for the owner with another chap called James, create a better Harvey Nash, truth be told, and then bring my interim management contract to freelancer model to grow an annuity revenue stream over 7 years. So fantastic time. We grew it to 9-figure revenue, learned loads, learned how to set a strategy, follow through on it, learned how to set a servant leadership type culture, learned how to grow something from 3 people to 150 people to that sort of Dunbar name sort of law, sort of pip, sort of segue point. And then towards the end of that, I just sort of saw several things in the market that I felt, I could go and solve. So the sort of desire for Sullivan Stanley came from being dissatisfied with the current state of transformation in organizations. A lot of my executive networks were telling me that they were getting really frustrated with management consultants. So there's management consulting fatigue. I saw this big brain drain of my clients and senior change agents going into what I suppose some people call now this white collar gig economy. So they're from changing preferences with the way that they want to work, with the lifestyle that they want. And then I also knew if you're into the sort of fourth turning and all of that kind of stuff, that this decade was going to be a decade of unrest and upheaval. So I kind of saw this perfect storm of maybe it was time to re-engineer myself and play a bigger game in consulting, play a bigger game at board level. I played that game as a recruiter where I used to deploy teams of senior freelancers and interims to deliver transformation. So I had a great track record there. But I never competed against the Deloittes and the PwCs and, the ones that have the big mandates. So the genesis of SNS was all around that. So the biggest learning was I was ready when I was ready. I think if I did it any sooner, maybe it wouldn't have been successful. And there's so many learnings, right? I think all of the things that I picked up from my career is when you're founding a business, first make your market, then make your sales. Marketing and sales in the morning first before anything else. When you're founding an organization, especially when you're going up against bigger brands, the sort of David versus Goliath energy is a really big one that I like and I still bring to the table now. So There's yourself, there's the founding team, then the seed team, then there's the performance team as you sort of, grow and evolve as an organization. And, you're always hustling. You're always trying to punch above your weight. You're always trying to win against the big behemoth brand names, in most organizations, in most industries. So you need that sort of marketing first, getting that position in the market, building the brand, getting the exposure, making your sales whilst, we say this thing Sullivan Stanley that we're sort of building the plane while we're in the sky. And that's, in an organically founded organization, cash flow is oxygen, and marketing is what gets you a position in the market where you can create your own white space within a larger white space. So I think, I'd like to think in years to come, I'd be advising businesses, and, I'm sure I'll have a framework that will come out, upon reflection, but it is first make your market, then make your sales. It is, building a community, an ecosystem around your business of customers, associates, partnerships, alliances, all of those kind of things, and feeding those first, trying to give more into those relationships than taking. And also, being in interim management and that heritage, I was schooled, and not just for my father as I grew up, but also, throughout my career, that relationships are everything in business. Always play the long game. So again, I was only ready when I was ready, because all of that relationship capital I'd built up over the 20 years. When I landed this, I had so many people going, Pat, I want to sort you out. I want to help you. I really want this to be a success for you. Here's a package of work. Here's an opportunity. So having the network coming to you then when you launch a business because you've served them in the right way for 20 years was huge. So obviously a lot in there, Sebastian, and I could talk a while on winning strategies and, how I grew it from, the first 3 years and then what the middle 3 years, there's lots in there, but I'd say they're the sort of key ones really. I never was at university or in my early career saying, I'm going to run my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. It was just, there was a glaring opportunity in the market. I knew I could do something to solve it. And I also had that burning platform of, if I don't do it, someone else would. And I'm the sort of individual that one thing I've always said to myself and I say to my children is just have no regrets. I'd rather do something and then it didn't work or I had to pivot rather than sit there later on in life and go, we should do that,
Yeah, the rocket chair test, when you're 80, you sit in a rocket chair and then you think, okay, is there anything I regret not doing? Yeah, and that's the point. We all fail, doing certain things, but trying is the important thing, and if you see an opportunity like you, go for it, try it, and if it fail fast and then try again. You touched on a few important points. Building a community and obviously building trust, when you are a small company against the big players. I was in a similar situation. I ran a consultancy for 22 years, also working against larger consultancies. And you have to build your trust, you have to build your community, and you have to deliver, and then people come back to you. And building a personal relationship with your customers is very important. I have relationships, they started when I started, 96, 97. I still do business with some of those people. And this is amazing. But it only happens when you deliver and when you play fair. And playing fair is, in my opinion, a very important thing in today's world where everything is very fast, very transaction-oriented, and sometimes not fair.
Yeah, I agree, Sebastian. It's just the right way to do business. It's a fun way to do business. A mutual value exchange just is the right way to approach things. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And you started this 7 years ago and you had in mind, okay, we need a new way of working in transformation projects. And when you look back the last 7 years, how much has changed and how big we are in the need of transformation, to cater for all these changes in the world, to transform our organization, to build a workplace where people want to work. We all witnessed the big change primarily in the US, where so many people left their companies because they didn't want to work there anymore. The big resignation. I see this here everywhere in smaller businesses, smaller shops, coffee shops, restaurants. They don't have staff anymore. There's a very nice restaurant next door here, and they close at 4 p.m. 3 times a week because they don't have people, to serve. And why is that? Well, they obviously didn't create this culture and didn't create a workplace for people to enjoy being there, And many big companies, many large organizations, your clients, they also need to tackle these problems because, as you said, there's this gig economy also for white-collar workers where they can sell their services to basically everyone in the world. So there's no need anymore for this permanent job, this permanent contract with a big corporate. So these corporates, they need to think, okay, how can we keep our people? How can we attract them? How can we create an environment that people want to work? They don't need to work there anymore. And I think this is an awakening they have to go through,
Yeah, agreed. I've always been at the forefront of, senior freelancing, gig economy kind of work at board and leadership and sort of technology and change space. So I've always understood the psyche of why independents want to be independent. And then if you look at the last decade and then the last 7 years, it's, there's so many things going on at once, Sebastian, which is causing a lot of complexity for corporates. Fundamentally, people don't have the capability that they need to change, and they don't have the speed within the organization that they need to change because majority of the large corporates are stuck in, the last industry. They're still arranged as they were last century, sort of micromanagement, command and control, hierarchy, silos, and they're competing against a backdrop of heavily funded, VC and PE-backed startups. Don't have the bureaucracy where the talent is going to, et cetera, et cetera. So, if you intersperse that with what's happened in more recent times, I think there was a massive changing of behavior and preferences of working styles across all demographics. I mean, I think we've got everyone from 16 to, 75, 80 now. A lot of people aren't retiring. They want to continue to work. So you've got sort of 3 or 4 different generations now wanting opportunity between, is it Gen X or Gen Z up to boomers? So when you look at that, and then the big black swan event that we went through, the pandemic, I think everyone kind of sat at home, just realized, is this it? Well, the government can just lock us down, and something could come out of nowhere which completely turns my life upside down. So you look at business disruption, you look at how quickly markets are moving, how quickly customer preferences are changing, how quickly technology is advancing in Industry 4.0, and then just the absolute weirdness of this decade, as I said, COVID, the unfortunate war in Ukraine, cost of living crisis, high inflation, everyone feeling the pinch at home. Things just getting to that tipping point where people are turning around, well, I don't want to work in a big corporate anymore. I want to go independent, or I'm going to go to a startup, or I'm going to, so there's all, I think people are starting to vote with their feet. So, what have I seen change in the last 7 years? I'd say that the 2 main things would be the changing preferences of workers across the board, actually putting life and experiences and designing something around their wants and needs before, capital gain, and sometimes people can marry the both. So I think this permanent recruitment obsession with large corporates, has to change. Our preferences are changing. Our parents were asset hoarders, buying property and all sorts. The new generations coming through want to rent for Airbnb. They want to keep assets low. They want to be nimble. They want to be flexible. They want to move around.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you look at that in the corporate world, why is this obsession about owning talent? You can't even host the talent. So the game has changed to access to talent and access to teams and access to capability for projects and product launches and change mandates, etc. And that's why I created Sullivan Stanley. I think the other thing that I would say that's changed in the last 7 years, and maybe this is again was happening anyway, but the pandemic maybe brought it into scope 7 years earlier. And that's what I call is the pushback against the big brand names and the rise of boutique and artisan preferences. So what I mean by that is, I think in this sort of hyper commercialized, capitalized industry that we've come from, everyone was buying from the big brands. Even if you're going to a supermarket, you go to the big supermarket brands. Everything is, commercialized, industrialized, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't labor the point, but if you think about, for instance, myself, when I was stuck at home, I started to not go to the big supermarkets. I would go to the high street and go to the local bakers and the local butchers and et cetera, and start to get better quality service, better quality product with more of a relationship and an experience at an artisan level. And I just voted with my wallet to think, I don't want to give the big companies my money anymore because I'm not getting the value I once did, and that could be from some of the better supermarkets, which I won't mention in the UK, where, you just feel that maybe the quality of produce isn't as good as it was, or prices are rising, all those kind of good stuff. So the big learning is in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I think the market is coming to more boutique service providers in the corporate world. And people are starting to now, I think, and that was always one of our things that we wanted to do, is how can we market and then deliver quality services that solve the problem in industry, where we can flip the narrative of what traditionally was you don't get fired for hiring XXX, insert large consultancy brand name, to I will get fired if I hire
for hiring.
Yes. Because guess what? They're going to come in with a prescribed playbook. They're going to come in with a pyramid model. They're going to come in and keep me in the problem. They're going to come in and do a 3-year change journey, which actually in 6 months could be irrelevant. So
they come in with one experienced person and 10 trainees.
Sebastian, you know this, you've also created successful businesses with the David versus Goliath energy. But I think business is getting harder. The world is nuts, unfortunately. And we're only, another black swan away from something. And I think every 18 months, we're going to see mini recessions, is my personal view. And we're in a larger recession, but, mini shocks, mini black swan events this decade. So, it's chaos for organizations to predict. They can't. They can do as best as they can, changing worker preferences. And as I said, I think people are now voting with their wallets and their spend to get more boutique, personalized, artisan services, which I agree with. I think that's healthy.
Yeah. And employees voting with their feet when they decide, okay, I don't want to work in an environment which is stuck in the past century. I want to work in one thing everyone realized during the pandemic, we only have one life.
Yes. Yes.
We only have one freaking life. And so many people are in this drift, they're stuck in this rut and in the... I do my job and then I will retire eventually, and this event woke them up. Yeah. And I have a son, he's 14, and he said, I don't want a permanent job, where my employee tells me when I can go on holiday, when I have to work. And then, he's 14, he already started his own business, we set up an online shop for him and he's selling some tech toys over the internet. And that's amazing, and I wish I would have had this awakening, this view when I was 14. Yeah, it's incredible how he sees the world and how he makes decisions for his future already in this young age. And I can only support him. I've never had a full-time employment my whole life. I was always an entrepreneur, starting as a freelancer, then founded my own business. And I remember one time a friend told me, "When do you want to get a real job?" I said, "What do you mean by a real job?"
Yeah, it's funny that it's again and some people believe me in this and some people don't, but it is true. One of the reasons I set Sullivan Stanley up was because 20 days holiday a year with children is just not enough. Like one of my key habits is I take a break every 10 weeks, sometimes every 8 weeks to recharge. When things start to get frustrating, it's time out, and I always encourage that. And you can align your organization around different ways of delivering outcomes. So it's more outcome based rather than time and activity based. And why can't people have as much holiday as they need to be the best that they can to perform at a peak level? So that was one of the other reasons. And To your point about eureka moments during lockdown, my life before that was 5 days a week, rat race into London, train in the morning, train back, anywhere between 70 to 90 hour week, sometimes 100. That's why I take regular breaks. It's how I like to work. It's a lot less at the moment, just after the pandemic. But one of the things we did, Sebastian, was we moved to Portugal, just because it was one of those things where I thought, there's so many bad things about the pandemic, of course, but actually there's so many positives that have come out for so many people and businesses from the pandemic. And for us, one of it was, don't need to be on a train commuting 5 days a week. I can actually lead a business from anywhere in the world. So
exactly.
I think other people are starting to feel that as well. I think we've got global workforce, which is a good thing for organizations. You don't have to have that localized permanent workforce. You can contract to the best brains and the best talent throughout the whole of the world now, which if organizations get in the right mindset, they can really capitalize on.
Yeah. Well, I spent 6 months in New Zealand this year.
Very nice.
Putting my kids on an English-speaking school. Initially, we planned 3 months, and then we all loved it so much, so we extended. And it was amazing time. I could do my stuff from there.
Making memories. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. An amazing time. And I can completely relate to working anywhere in the world where it suits you and do your business. Nothing prevents us. It's only our own limitations which prevent us from doing what we actually want to do. So where do you see the next couple of years? I always hesitate to do long-term planning because we never know how the world is changing, and I had to reinvent things many times in the past. But when you look at the next, say, 2 to 3 years, how do you see S&S developing, and where do you see the biggest challenges and topics you will be facing?
Very good question, Sebastian. One of the winning strategies that I brought into S&S several years ago, and maybe this will resonate with you, but I'm sure you have experiences and memories from trying to get a vision statement with a group of people. Pain, absolute pain. Because it's hard, right? It's hard to articulate a pithy vision that really energizes a business that you can then recontract with the business and recontract with the individuals around you in that business to go and achieve something special. So there's this tool that I came across, an entrepreneur network out in the States called Genius Network. So one of my habits is I'm a lifelong learner.
Me too.
I'm the product of coaching. If I didn't make a decision at 28 to make the most out of my time here, then I wouldn't be having this conversation with you now. So the product of coaching, and one of the things I like to do is pay to play in networks where I can be around other like-minded entrepreneurs, fresh ideas. And I always quite like going to the States because you get sort of quite fresh ideas over there. Some don't fly, but some are just fascinating, and it's also good to get context by getting on a plane and getting out of your current context and going on a journey and experience. So I came across this individual called Cameron Herold, who was part of this Genius Network entrepreneur, and he wrote this brilliant book. I'll send you the link for the show notes because it's a great tool for other CEOs who listen to your podcast and other executive leaders. And the premise is quite simple, really. It's almost impossible to encapsulate the vision of a business in a statement. So the vivid vision is a 5-page document, and the advice is that you co-create it with your organization. So I always like to take S&S and my people away on experiences. So we had our winter retreat in Obergurgl in Austria, and Adrian Stallum was one of the original sort of founding team and seed team, a great change agent, one of the best transformation minds that I've come across, put us all through this meditative state where we tuned into our strategic drivers, we tuned into the vision of a future S&S 3 years down the line, the score. And then we all got into this sort of creative, meditative sort of space, and then had an exercise to then go around and articulate via Post-it notes where we wanted the business to be in sort of 3-4 years' time. So the asset at the end of that was the vivid vision. I can send you a copy of it. Document. And And it's quite interesting because we've probably delivered about 65% of it. It becomes the sort of the roadmap, the North Star. And, it's very inclusive. It gives everyone equity in where the business is going. So you get that sort of natural, purpose-driven response. So where do I see us going in the next 3 years? Don't mean to sound like a cop-out, Sebastian, but I'm taking everyone to Portugal in September, and we're spending a day creating our new vivid vision for where we're going in the next 3 to 4 years. And in there's going to be, several things that we're working on. I think we're now starting to play a bigger game as a business. So we are winning big transformation mandates from CEOs and boards in the FTSE Fortune class industry. So not just sort of, large SMEs, large organizations where you don't get fired for hiring XXX is prevalent, which shows to me that the market's starting to come to us. So, one of our strategic drivers is creating our own white space in consulting. So think like how the Brewdog did with the brewery industry, how Axiom Law did with the Magic Circle law industry. I want Sullivan Stanley to create our own white space within a tired industry to pioneer a new version of that industry that other people start to follow. We want to play a bigger game. So we want to do more board level mandated transformations. We won an award for the transformation we did with Shell, which we co-won with the Shell exec team and the organization. And, the CEO said there, this is the only way to work in the 21st century. This is the only way to consult in the 21st century. So as an old sales director said to me many, many years ago, if you can do it once, Pat, you can do it 1,000 times. So we want to do that, 30 times in the next 3 years, impact in the market. The other thing, which is very dear to me because, another one of my sort of, habits, I suppose, but it's just to keep reminding myself is don't forget to smell the roses and enjoy the process. So I always say to SNS and everyone that works with me that the journey is as important as the outcome. And one of the reasons I left my old world was when it starts to become headcounts, EBIT, investor, unhealthy pressures that drive unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy fiefdoms, unhealthy, mismatch of objectives across the business, then you can ruin the culture within a year. You can ruin everything and you can start to really see some attrition. So I see the next 3 years of really putting our people before anything and creating that experience for them to be their best selves, to perform at a level where I don't just serve the business contract I've got with everyone, which is I pay you on time. It's a good business. You get, all the things you'd expect. I've also got, and I'm a big believer in this, I've got a contract to develop everyone. So whether you're with Sullivan Stanley for a year, 2, 3, 5, hopefully 7, maybe 10, maybe for a long time, you are an completely improved version of yourself. And you've, learned a plethora of different skills and experiences, almost like a mini MBA, right? From learning to be part of a scale up. So again, I think in the next 3 years, impact in business, impact in how we transform organizations and what that means for those people in the organization. So energized, more engaged, more career satisfaction, organizations that are creating new revenue streams via new products, digital products and services. So they're future-proof themselves. People who have been super successful in SNS. And I just want to still, a lot of my decisions will still be derived on, am I loving it every day? Do I feel like I'm serving the businesses to the best of my ability every day? And are we still creating impact in the market? That would be, that's the sort of signpost for the next sort of 3 years. And once we create the new Vivid Vision, Sebastian, I'll send it through to you as well. So you can pop.
I would love to do this. I would love to see this. Also mapping the current one with the new one, seeing how this organization has transformed. I mean, we all transforming constantly. And sounds like an amazing story. I mean, I know a lot of big corporates. I've worked with them for decades. And I also agree that it's time for change in how consultancies provide services and how corporates work with consultancies. And I love your story, man, really. And I can only hope that many of our listeners from the corporate world say, hey, this might be an approach worth looking at, and then they reach out to you. So, Pat, thank you so much for sharing all these insights today. Been a very interesting conversation, and times are constantly changing. And I'm sure your organization will constantly adapt and come up with new strategies, new ideas, and a vision across the company is a great way to form a team which all have the same goal and goes in the same direction. So I think well set for an amazing future. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. It's gone quickly, hasn't it? But it's been lovely to talk with you. Could have talked for a lot longer, but hopefully your listeners enjoy it. And if any want to reach out to me, that'd be fantastic to continue the conversation. I'll send you some links for some of the books and assets I mentioned as well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Thank you for tuning into the High Performance CEO Show. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, and it's been a pleasure serving you. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create a bigger impact. Check out our website, sebastianschieke.com, for additional resources. Until next time, be bold, be exceptional, be outstanding, be a leader.